I do not know.
No, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:43. 6:43.
Perfect.
Okay, consent agenda, approval of minutes. Does anybody have any changes or comments about the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
We got a second, someone?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, this is a roll call vote. Tom,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
and Dorian is an aye. That is everyone. Okay, Shopc Capital Planning Subcommittee update. Tom, do we have anything in the works?
Yeah, we're just still working on the actual report. And it's been a year, so we're going back and rehashing some of the things that we looked at, a year ago, just to make sure it's so good. Like I'm planning on circling back to some of the developers I spoke to a year ago, just to see if, they have any new insights in their market conditions and costs and things like that. And so it's all coming together. We have drafts that have been floating around and we're editing drafts. We were actually supposed to have a meeting tonight, but actually at this time, and this got scheduled, so we bumped it to next week.
Okay,
So hopefully have a product to produce in the next, after the next few meetings.
okay, thank you. Okay, the MAPC final draft presentation to the Board of Selectmen. I'm going to have Sarah talk about that because she's been in touch with the MAPC rep, who is Emily. Or Emma. I always say Emily. Emma. Is there anything to discuss on this, or do we just need to set a meeting date?
Yep. Emma is all set to attend that joint meeting whenever we're ready. Obviously, we would encourage the CPC to join us as well. Neither of these boards really need to ratify this report. Shopc would be the one to vote that it's complete. But we did want to have an opportunity for all three boards to get together and just sort of speak on some of the issues in terms of the funds transfer and how, having that in a seamless manner at town meeting to go into the Affordable Housing Trust will create a better projection into the future in terms of that 5-year spending and supporting the plan that we've developed.
Okay. Great. So I will reach out to the Board of Selectmen. I'll send an email over to Kathy and Mark requesting that we try to get a joint meeting done before the end of the year.
Yes, that would be
in order to be considerate to our MAPC person whose contract has expired, but she has agreed to meet with the boards for us.
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, we won't be doing a warrant article presentation. I did pull that on our behalf. Didn't anticipate we were going to get anywhere with that, and the Board of Selectmen didn't really understand what was going on. And since we couldn't get the meeting in with everyone prior to the town meeting, I made the executive decision to pull that warrant article, and we can bring it back into the spring, but we would have needed the support of the Board of Selectmen to get that to go unless we did a citizen's petition. So that was on me. I made the executive decision to pull it, so we can discuss it at our next meeting and try to figure out how we want to proceed with that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the joint meeting with Emma will be able to shed some light on that discussion as well, because I know that she is really in support of that warrant article and that moving forward. I would also, before that meeting, encourage perhaps both of those boards to, if they haven't had an opportunity to review our June 27th meeting, in which, Town Council Tallerman came and really spoke on that issue, lending it clarity to the discussion.
Right, but he also read through the warrant article and gave his approval on the wording of the warrant article. So
agreed.
we do have town council's approval on that to go forward. So
yes, right.
Did we give our two new members a quick 10-second synopsis about what we're talking about?
Oh, that's probably important, huh?
Doug, are you lost?
Right?
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
don't know if Andrew knows either. Andrew, are you up on this too? I guess Andrew's on the board, select board, so he may already
Yes,
know.
but I think that just presenting it as the simple overview
Sure.
helpful.
Go ahead, Tom. We'll let you.
You want me to? All right, I'll probably botch it, but let me do something that's, I think, somewhat close.
Okay,
There's a mechanism every year in the town meeting warrant to allocate funds to affordable housing and to get into the affordable housing trust fund. But it gets allocated to correct me if I'm wrong, Dorian, CPC.
Yes, goes into a housing bucket.
It goes into a housing bucket, and then CPC basically has to transfer the funds over to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for it actually to be used by Shopc. And it's somewhat important that the money be there and readily available because, there are times one of the things Shopc does is to try to find real estate that they might be able to buy, at an affordable price, and they need the money, as Doug, you need to be able to act fast and when real estate opportunities apply. So it was always too convoluted for Shopc to then go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and make an application to CPC for application of the funds and then wait for CPC to have a hearing. It was too convoluted. And there were some ambiguities in the way that it's supposed to work. The money really is supposed to end up in the trust fund and not be hung up at CPC. So long story short, this is a warrant article to get rid of that middle snag. So the funds, I don't know if they'll still flow through CPC, but even if they do, they'll end up in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in short order without having to go through some additional intervening process.
is it a requirement of the CPA itself that the money has to first go to the community, the CPC before it goes to the affordable house?
Yeah, so Andrew, there was the way the warrant articles in the past were worded. It had some language, like some sentence that made some passing reference to the money going to CPC and then CPC having to approve it. And what Jay Tallerman said at our meeting in July is that really isn't supposed to be the case. That's not the way CPC funds are supposed to be administered. And so Jay, in consultation with CPC, sort of got them to agree that isn't something that should be in there going forward. And that in the meantime, over the past several years, I think a couple $100,000 is accumulated in the CPC funds. It's just sitting there and can't be attached. So one of the things that's supposed to happen is that those funds are actually supposed to be transferred over. The past funds are supposed to be transferred over to the trust.
Was there a recent vote of the CPC to make the transfer?
That I thought there was, but Dorian, is that the way
Yes,
it came
there
out?
was. So they transferred 196, 232 and change, some
That
approximately
actually happened. That's
to the
actually
Affordable
happened.
Housing Trust Fund, but that was from the approved amounts from 2009, 11 and 12, 2011, 2012. So all the other monies are still sitting in this bucket. And so here's the issue. CPC is basically holding us hostage because we would have to go to them, ask them for the money. They would have to then transfer it to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We still have to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and ask them to support the project. Our hands are so tied that we can't get anything done because by the time we want to do something, maybe buy real estate, maybe do something, we've lost the opportunity because it takes months to get this through, to get anything happen. I mean, case in point, it took us 2 years to get this money transferred. And it was only through the threat of a warrant article that we put enough pressure that they actually did it. So,
Dorian, just correct me if I'm wrong. So what's supposed to happen at the next town warrant is a warrant article to get the rest of the money that's there transferred over, or to just no longer have that language hitch so that it stays with CPC for future funding?
both things. So we want
okay.
the rest of the housing bucket transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. What happens in other towns, and there are several other towns, at least 10 that we have documented, if that town has an Affordable Housing Trust Fund, when the town meeting takes place and they approve those CPC monies, the monies, the buckets, the housing money is automatically transferred, I believe, from the state to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It doesn't go through CPC. It doesn't need to go through CPC. We don't have to go to CPC and show a project or blueprints or anything like that. It's mostly a formality to get the money. But town meeting has approved the housing money. We have an Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The flow should be town meeting, money goes to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. CPC would, because it's CPC funding from the state, that they have to present the warrant article. So 10% of all the monies go into each of these individual buckets with CPC. But we should be alleviating one of these steps because it's quite burdensome for us as a committee to get anything done for housing when we have to jump through all these hoops to get the money to be able to do anything. We still need the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to approve it. We'd have to come forward with a project. We'd have to show them why we want the money, what the money's for, the different steps, all the planning stages we would go to them for. But we shouldn't have to go to CPC, ask them to transfer the money and ensue in this back and forth battle with them when the money's already been approved by the taxpayers.
And so you already have language that, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
We already have the warrant article written.
So there was a draft warrant. There was a draft warrant article that just had a placeholder for it, and I don't remember whether.
Yes, no, you probably, no, I probably pulled it, so I don't think Mark printed the language in it. But we've been working on this for quite a while, and we're trying to work with everyone and be considerate. And look, we have a job to do on this committee. We need we need some affordable housing. We need more than what we have. We have a 10% mandate by the state. We have 8.6 right now. We need another, I believe, 77 units to bring us to the 10% mark. We did take a look at this land use. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but we could have 1.5% of all the land in Southborough that's buildable. If we could hit that 1.5%, we'd be in safe harbor. Not the way the state has it set up. There's no way we would make it. We can't do it. It's just not feasible. It's not doable. It's crazy. Sarah, can you pull up the warrant article language that we had, that we were
Yep.
going to go forward with and send
I
that
can.
to the board members? So
Oh,
everybody
sure,
has
yep.
that.
Yeah.
And
it's
just
posted.
around the South Dorian, it's just putting it, it's just gonna go on a shelf until the next town meeting and
It's
we'll
gonna-
resuscitate that. Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing, Tom, we can't go forward with a warrant article. The Board of Selectmen would have to approve our warrant article and they would have to support it. We can't do that on our own. The
Yeah,
only
Shopc
other way
can't
we could
sponsor.
do it is through a citizen's petition. So we could drop a citizen petition, like if the Board of Selectmen don't want to support it, but we feel very strongly, we would have to do a citizen's petition and we would have. to-
What's our preferred method? We go to the Board of Selectmen and say,
I'd rather go to the
"Please
Board
take
of
this up," and
Selectmen.
you guys run with
Yes.
it. Yeah.
I would much rather have the support of our Board of Selectmen on this. Absolutely without question, but
And hopefully CPC.
I'm tired of banging my head against a wall and fighting CPC for 2 years to get this money. I'm not going to do that for another 2 years for every time we want money to have these huge discussions and battles back and forth to try to get the money.
Yeah.
The money is approved at town meeting. We should be getting that money. It should be direct. We have a trust fund that takes care of the money. That's what they were set up for. The towns that don't have a trust fund, CPC watches that money. That's understandable. But we have a housing trust fund for the sole purpose of the housing money. So it doesn't make sense that we're going this extra step. And we're a pretty honest group of people. It's not like we're going to try to do something we shouldn't be doing. We're trying to help people. And we need some of this burden removed from us to help facilitate some of this. Just my opinion on that. So anyway, I think we should get the joint meeting together, do that as soon as possible, hopefully before the end of the year, by December 31st. And then if we can't come to some kind of an agreement with CPC that they support it, we're gonna have to go forward with the warrant article, either with the support of the Board of Selectmen or without it. But either way, something has to happen at the town meeting coming up in the spring. Not this fall one, but in the spring. So we're gonna have to have some lengthy discussions on that. But we have our warrant article ready to go, so that's good. Okay, the ARPA spending. Sarah is back with us for a year. She is already starting to look for housing grants and monies, and because none of us are Zoom approved or ready, Sarah is running the meeting tonight. Thank you, Sarah. I asked her to do that because I was out of town. There was no way I could jump in and do this. So I will go get Zoom trained before the next meeting. And then God help us, because you never know what I'm going to do with technology, but I'm going to try. MBTA communities. All right, first of all, does anybody have any other questions on that warrant article? I'm sorry, we started late, so I'm trying to really run through this
Yeah.
meeting for everyone.
I can send out a link, the warrant article language actually, and the final draft of the 5-year strategic spending was posted on the town website under our 6/27 meeting. So I'll just send that link out so that everybody has it.
Perfect. And Doug will definitely need to get that. So, because hasn't seen that yet. All right. Does anybody have any other comments or questions on what our next few steps should be? I think we should have a joint meeting and then proceed from there.
Sounds good.
Agreement. Okay. All right. ARPA spending, we have Sarah. MBTA communities, there's no other updates on that new ruling that came through. Nothing. Okay.
Although,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew.
There was a advisory from Tallerman's firm, prepared a memo summarizing final guidelines that the DHCD had issued regarding the MBTA communities. I guess, Tom, is it it's like a new section of Chapter 40A? Okay,
I don't know if it's in 40A. I'm trying to think. The statute is already, Andrew, the statute is already enacted, but it's like everything else. It's cursory. So it's God, I'm forgetting with the language, but it leaves it to DHCD to implement regulations to implement the program. And those DHCD regulations and guidelines for these MBTA, basically zoning overlay districts, have been under a lot of controversy because the standards have been considered to be too stringent and too burdensome to municipalities and too hard to meet to create these MBTA, zoning districts. And so that's where I leave off. I know that there's a lot of criticism and it was still under review. I didn't know that DHCD had adopted final guidelines on that and what those ended up looking like. I know a lot of municipalities, voice objection to some of the provisions.
Well, I think I'm looking at the email that Mark Purple sent on September 2nd, that it was sent to the select board and I think Shopc. So.
Yeah, we should have all gotten that. Hang on.
That might have gone to my Southborough email.
Hang on. Here it is. All right, I'm going to forward this. I'll forward this to the board right now. Hold on. Jesse.
But I mean, whatever it is, I think from our standpoint, from Shopc, our whole purpose in life is to try to facilitate affordable housing, which almost by definition means more dense housing than 2-acre minimum, 5,000 square foot mansions that 3/4 of the people in Southborough live in. So I think we as a committee should generally be in support of creating an MBTA community zoning overlay district, however stringent the guidelines end up being.
So Tom, today DHCD actually had a seminar, a webinar on the MBTA communities. There should be a recording out there. I actually attended just to listen in.
Yeah.
Part because of this, but also part because of just, where development's going to be heading. But it was actually a pretty good overview. I mean, when I say overview, it was a very high level overview, but there was reference to DHCD will have some grants and technical assistance for towns. So maybe something we want to follow up on and check in on. They also have they referenced a tool that can be used by, planners or town officials, right? To actually evaluate, how this might translate based upon assessors databases. So there were some interesting things there that I can find the link and I can forward it around to everyone, but would definitely suggest, some people may want to take a look at that, or maybe the town wants to follow up directly too as well to look at that. But yeah, clearly they seem to have issued their guidelines and they were.
Oh, they have in final. Okay, gotcha.
Well, when I say that, I mean, I want to be careful what I say here, but their
You have to be
presentation,
careful, Doug.
their presentation was pretty directive, right? It was pretty much providing an overview of what, of the MBTA communities and what it means for, communities like us, to each of the categories, adjacent communities, MBTA, commuter rail communities, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Could
some
you
of the
send that
things.
link out to everyone, please, if you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind. Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah,
Things just to give you a flavoring. Some of the things that people are objecting to is that, the DHCD was going to require municipalities to show, their 50-acre minimum, and they wanted communities to show that the land within that area was developable for the minimum number of units. And so some people complain that means that they would have to send out, wetlands people out to flag the space and figure out where wetlands are and figure out, Title V septic system requirements and stuff like that, which would be too burdensome to logistically and cost wise for a municipality to be able to demonstrate to DHCD that it has the developable land. I mean, we all understand we can't just say, here's a swamp, 50 acres of swampland, give us our zoning district, because we know that can't be developed, but that's what they're trying to achieve with.
Tom, did
But
they
it
ever
has
say
to be
anything
within a
about?
half an acre. It has to be within a half an acre of the MBTA station.
Yeah, half mile,
So it's
yeah.
not, the first
So here,
25
Tom-
acres has to be.
Tom, did they say anything about, exceptions, like where our MBTA station's right on the town line? So
Yeah,
our,
no, we
our,
can't.
our area is cut in half because, to the south is Hopkinton. And then to the east and west is wetlands. And then we only have to the north. And
So-
out of that, we've got very limited developable lands there besides, a pocket behind the school.
Yeah. And when they say developable land, it doesn't necessarily mean land. It doesn't exclude land that's already developed, with houses and things like that. And just understand that even this 50-acre area could be all already fully developed. It just has to be land that in the future, if those houses are sold and somebody else wanted to develop on them, they could develop on them. So
Well,
it's
my
not
point
really.
but there's a spot that something could go in behind a small neighborhood. There's a bunch of acreage available off behind Parkerville by the school that something like that just wouldn't fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there was something, I'm forgetting the criteria. All 50 acres don't have to be within a half mile. It only has to
I
be
know, but
some.
this one particular lot, it wouldn't fit in. And I mean, they could put something there, and trust me, somebody would.
Yeah.
But it just, anyway.
Well, I mean, just cynically, some municipalities may not have any real intention of developing a single unit. They just want the zoning
they had
district so they can get their,
the distance for people like
qualification
us.
for other state bonds.
I know they had talked about extending the distance for situations like ours, and I know that the CAS building was bought. He's turning that into storage facility, and then he's building housing behind it, and he wants to make some of that affordable as well. So that's more than a mile. It's like 1.25 miles as the crow flies, I think, from the T station. So I didn't know if we could get somehow that to qualify towards it, because that would be a great part of it.
So might jump in, Tom here for a second, but on the presentation today, there's a calculation based upon how much acreage is within a 1/2 mile of the station, which then gives you a certain percentage that does not have to be within the 1/2
Right.
mile of the station. So a town, they actually went through an example today, Needham, which has way too many stations they can count, actually has a 90% requirement of being within the 1/2 mile. But there are other towns like Arlington, because they have so limited area within the 1/2 mile of the station, like only 20% of this new zoning district had to be within the 1/2 mile. So there is a
Yeah.
calculation. So I think, John, we're gonna probably have some flexibility, just because, again,
Good.
like you just said, they have a calculation to try to address that. If not all of the area within a 1/2 mile is that large, you actually have the ability to move a portion of it around, but there is a calculation based upon it.
Great.
But it
Hey,
has
Doug,
to
by the
be-
way, nice to meet you. I'm John Wood. Welcome to the
Yep.
committee.
Yep, pleasure.
It has to be 5-acre pieces though. So the first, my understanding and what they've sent out is the first 25 acres has to be within a 1/2 mile of the MBTA station. And it has to be contiguous, has to be 25 acres. The other 25 acres have to be in 5-acre groupings, and they can be anywhere. They don't have to be within a 1/2 mile, but they have to be 5-acre groupings. So John, that may qualify and that may work, because it would be within that, it wouldn't be the first 25 acres, but it would be part of a 25 acres.
Because he's got 10 acres
Yeah.
back there that may be able to count towards it.
Right, so I mean, that could be possible. Our biggest issue is the 25 acres next to the MBTA station. I mean, I don't know. I don't know
Yep.
what the answer is, but I think that's up to planning board.
Yeah, it's really not, I don't think we're gonna be.
That's
people
not our-
driving
that's
this-
not our
this
purview.
Zoning district.
Yeah, that's
But
not,
it does raise an issue that, John, that you mentioned, that the problem is, if this MBTA community zoning district gets implemented, that will be good for the creation of more dense housing. It will give a zoning mechanism to allow developers to do more dense housing. And the corollary to that, the inverse of that is, we really don't have a mechanism in our current zoning bylaws to do multifamily housing now. And what I'm really talking about is, the only mechanism really is the MRD. And, we've talked about this ad nauseum. The MRD thwarts the creation of affordable housing. So that's why I keep coming back to. I think somebody, and maybe we at some point, hopefully relatively soon, will be the party to initiate some zoning in conjunction with other people in town to initiate some proposed zoning changes to the MRD to make it actually facilitative of the development of affordable housing, because the bylaw now doesn't allow any affordable housing in practicality.
Yeah.
And multifamily housing, I mean.
that's ZBA and planning. They have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, sure
Well,
do.
it's anything. So, the zoning bylaw needs to be addressed. I mean, anyone should be, and if it's a housing issue, I don't see why we shouldn't be taking an active role in doing
We
it.
can, but we could take an active role, but we can't present anything to town meeting or anything. We can't change that stuff. It has to go through the appropriate group. So,
Yeah, but that's
Come
part
up
of our
with
role, is to
something.
advocate.
right, we can
Use the
advocate the
different
ZBA or
levels of government
planning.
that are present in this room,
Yeah.
Andrew Dennington and Jesse Stein, and, not nobodies like me, but people who, have levers on the controls of government to help convince them to maneuver them in a way that gets us to these things. So,
And Tom, what you're talking about would be something, right, that would be the lower, there's a lowered threshold at town meeting. You would, something like what you're talking about would be just a majority passage rather.
oh, right, under that new law that got enacted last year, right? So it wouldn't need to be a
So-
supermajority, it'd be a regular,
Since my friend Mr. Bizicle invoked my name, I
There he
will mention and remind everybody that the downtown district does allow for 10 units by right, with the affordability minimum of 25%. So I don't think it's completely accurate to say that we haven't done some progress in terms of facilitating and allowing affordable housing via multifamily housing. But I do agree, Tom, that the MRD could use some work. I think historically, our planning board has had a very preservationist bent. So, and maybe the town, can't be the only one that thinks the town as a whole is somewhat preservationist in general. So, but I hear you, and
Yeah,
I think
I'm
with
not
the
the only one
MRD, it's
saying, I
definitely
think,
worth
I
the
think
work.
it's sort of, you know, our what am I drawing a blank, Sarah, with the housing production plan that we just did.
HPP.
The HPP, right? All the consultants came in and said, yeah, the MRD doesn't allow for affordable housing. Your zoning bylaws are terrible for the
Yes.
creation of housing. The master plan that just got issued, there's a chapter in there that said the same thing, had the same issues with the MRD. So I'm not the only one saying it. I think there's a larger movement afoot in town to deal with that MRD bylaw.
I hear you. Duly noted.
Anybody else have anything else to add to that?
Only
Nope.
that we did take a look really briefly early on, at some very rudimentary sort of GIS mapping of what that 50 acres could potentially look like. So we do have some visual aids sort of floating around out there that I could circulate for this discussion next time, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, we should put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and then we can get that information out to everyone.
And the thing that I was raising my hand to read, which I think Doug what you talked about was just about this part. In the summary memo from Mead Tellerman, it says, the guidelines provide more flexibility in terms of location. The portion of a multifamily zoning district that must be located within a half mile of a transit station now varies based on the amount of developable station area within each MBTA community. Communities with more developable station area land will be required to have more of their multifamily districts within a half mile of transit stations. And here it is. A community with less than 100 developable acres within a half mile of a station will be free to choose any appropriate location. That's what you were talking about?
Yeah, and I'm gonna track down that presentation because they had a slide where it was a sliding scale from 0% within a half mile up to 90% based upon what you just said there. So it's kind of a sliding scale. So I think they've already tried to amend it to show some more flexibility. So, and they gave an example of Arlington where only, very little area was actually within the half mile radius. And so Arlington has a lot of flexibility, but I can probably dig, I'll find that hopefully I'll find the recording tomorrow and circulate it around. I just checked it, it's not online yet. Or at least get their presentation. I can circulate to all the members, but it was an interesting sliding scale. So I think we're gonna have a more flexibility to split this zone up and move it around town.
Curious if anyone, Andrew, you probably know the answer, or you do, Dorian, or maybe you do, Sarah. Who's actually, I know MBTA community is a big topic in town across multiple boards. Is there anyone who's actually kind of taking the lead on actually doing something or?
I think, okay, maybe here this is kind of an example of bureaucracy in action. Jesse, I think that it would be the planning board.
Yeah,
Planning departments?
It's been an agenda item periodically at our meetings. And I'm going off of memory without the minutes in front of me. I'm going to be probably incorrect, but I'll give it a shot. My recollection, Andrew, is that we formulated a like a comment letter, which was sent back to this. Pardon me?
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I was anticipating when you're going, but
oh, go ahead.
the select board and the planning board and Dorian worked a lot on this, was a comment letter on the,
DHCD guidelines.
yes, yes. But those were the proposed guidelines. So now the final guidelines are out, and here's I think the key point at the end. To achieve interim compliance for grants made through the 2023 one-stop application, and the town has gotten significant one-stop grants. Action plans must be submitted no later than January 31st, 2023.
Okay, so,
Deadline.
so Andrew, we don't, I mean, at special town meeting, I know for a fact, we're not sponsoring any warrant articles
Yep.
to make these zoning changes.
Yep.
Whether
Yep.
or not we, I guess what will probably happen, and I'll have to check with Karina and report back to this committee, is that we would follow that guideline and submit the plan to sponsor the warrant article at the, when's the next town meeting, Andrew? Is it like the spring,
Well,
May,
it's gonna be, it's gonna be March, because we're going
March?
to, the COVID era of town meetings ends 2023. So like outdoor town meetings, going to Algonquin.
So we're,
is the town.
so we're
bylaw.
in September. That warrant will probably close around the end of January. So it coincides with that deadline.
Yeah.
And I'll check with Karina and report back.
And it's really, I think what's saying is not that you have to have, you need to have an action plan.
Oh, you don't actually have to have an approved zoning district. You just have to have a plan to create one to qualify for the one-stop grants.
It has to be on a form provided by DHC that provides information about current zoning, past planning for multifamily, and if any potential locations for multifamily. The action plan will require the MBTA community to establish a timeline for various actions needed to create a compliant multifamily zoning district. So I don't think that means the town has to change its zoning bylaw by just an action plan. And
Well, wouldn't you think at some point, though, if we don't pass the district, we'll lose the grant?
Yeah.
It sounds like this action plan is like an interim step that the state wants to see that you're working toward
Yeah.
the final approval of a zoning district.
Yeah.
And if you haven't at least gotten the action plan, then they say all right, we're pulling it. But if you at least have the action plan, they know
Yeah.
that you're on track.
I mean, on that basis, I feel like it's worthwhile to sponsor the warrant article, so.
We would
Hopefully by
look
the
at
next
area.
Shopc meeting, I'll have a update with my progress and working with the planning department.
We've already come up with an idea of where the district could be, at least the area around the MBTA. But trying to find the other 25 acres in town is, any land that the town owns is not buildable. It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be limited to the land the town owns. It's
Right.
right. It's just
You have-
developable land.
Right, but we have the
You-
South Union School, but that's only 4.2 acres. That won't qualify now. And that's not within the half a mile because that's 0.6.
I think it is. No, I think it
Well-
is within a half mile.
0.6. No, it's 0.6.
So
But it's still
Dorian,
probably could
It could
count.
be part of that 25. It
Yeah.
could be part of that 25 acres, the whole big piece. So you're right.
but Dorian, wouldn't the MBTA communities zone? It wouldn't necessarily have to be land that's available for development at this moment.
Correct.
No, just you
Right.
have to
You can
designate
include-
an area.
You can
Right.
include parcels that are currently already improved and developed.
Yep.
It's just
Exactly.
saying that in the future.
Right. No, you just
So-
have to designate, okay, we're gonna make this our MBTA communities. This is the district. So if you took, which we did already, we came up, Sarah came up with that mapping and we had talked about it and discussed it at a previous meeting where Sarah had actually mapped out the whole area, the 25 miles around that MBTA community. and not the Hopkinton side, our side.
I
That would
can't-
include like Stockwell Lane and St. Matthews, that whole area in there.
I really am looking forward to the opportunity of trying to explain that on town meeting floor
Yeah,
to
I mean,
a very open-minded and welcoming constituency. That'll be a real hoot.
that's
go
why
easy.
it's gonna be planning
But
board.
there's no way to
too.
avoid it. There's no way of finding, 50 acres of land that's completely vacant land. It just doesn't exist. That's not owned by other people. It's by definition going to include people's houses, just like any other zoning district in any other town, anybody. You create a line around a map and it includes, for an overlay district, it includes a bunch of land that's already developed. I mean, it really is no difference, but I agree with you, Jesse. You still have to explain that
Yeah.
concept to residents, and it's hard for them
Good
to wrap
luck.
their mind around it.
You could be the man for the job.
I'm busy that night, I think. I got, I
There
was
you
supposed
go.
to be washing my hair or something
Well
like that.
played.
Jesse, it was pretty easy to get the, talk about housing density for downtown, so I don't think it should be an issue. at
It
town
was
meeting.
pretty easy.
There may have been a note of
That's
sarcasm
good.
there.
Well, this is one of our more interesting meetings. It's
He's
good
being
stuff.
very facetious, I think.
Yeah, this is gonna be a real tough pill to swallow at town meeting for when we try to explain
Planning.
it.
Our planning board,
Well, yeah, I mean, Jesse, if this is a planning thing, how many forums would you have to have for that? Like,
Oh, public hearings for this?
yeah, 5, 10? One with no public
I would
comment?
say we would probably have 3 to 4 discussions.
at
Yeah.
least.
And then 3 to 4 public hearings to have any shot at all. If we're
I
gonna
think you'd
do
be
this
conservative with
seriously, I
those
think
numbers.
that's about what it would take, so.
But the most immediate action item is just to get this action plan done. So no one's gonna be freaked out by anything because nothing's gonna be submitted to the town meeting to change the zoning anytime soon. It sounds like the
Okay,
most
so on
urgent thing is
that
just to get
basis,
this
it really
action
doesn't have
plan.
to be in that March town meeting warrant. We could have it in the action plan that we're hoping for a special town meeting in the fall. Because that's actually a more realistic
I
action
think so.
plan
I think
based
so.
on the time of year we're in now.
Yeah, Andrew may have said this, but in the presentation today, I think our classification community gives us through December 31st, 2024 to actually pass the zoning district.
Oh, is that
Again,
right?
Yeah, so if.
So it
if
has to be
you're,
passed at the fall town meeting of 2023.
Yeah,
So that's good to
so
know.
Well,
I'm glad
sorry,
somebody-
what was
somebody
it-
attended that hearing, Doug.
What
That's
was
good
the
timing.
deadline in 2024?
December 31st, 2024. And again, I'll dig up that presentation and circulate it, but they have four different deadlines. Everyone had to submit the action plan by January 31st, 2023, as Andrew pointed out. And then 3 classifications of communities. The ones that have heavy transit, like Cambridge, Brookline and everything, only have till the end of 23 to submit, or to have the zoning district. Like commuter rail communities like us had through 24, and then the small communities that are not adjacent had through 25 or something. So there was different classifications, but I'm almost positive it was the 31st, 2024, and I'll confirm that and circulate that.
So that actually
you,
gives
Doug.
us some room because what I, just throwing it out there is like, based on my experience with this kind of stuff, we'll go to town meeting and air it out in October of next year. And if it fails, then we can come back with a revised warrant article in the spring of 2024. And then maybe get something past that, in which case would be under the deadline. So,
But what'd you say the action plan deadline, Doug, was December 31 of 23, of 22?
No, January 31st.
All right, so that's 4 months away. So that action plan has to be, put together actually relatively quickly.
no, I understood that, but I meant the passing of it. doesn't have
Yeah,
to be
no, I
done
know.
until the
Yeah,
end of
then, but still, by the end of 2024. Is that what you said, Doug? So it's another year and a half?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm
Okay.
looking at it right now. So community category, commuter rail, community. The deadline for district compliance is December 31st, 2024.
Okay, so we have 2 years and change. Okay.
Okay.
Doug, you're showing your
Oh, we got
value
that
already,
covered.
your first meeting.
That's yeah. Happenstance. I happened to be on the seminar earlier today.
It's all about the timing. Okay, so why don't we discuss the district area and maybe resend the mapping that we had looked at earlier in one of our
Sure.
previous meetings. And then take a look at it and have a lengthy discussion about thoughts and ideas and maybe other possibilities. But let's start hammering away at that a little bit. And then we can hand that off to the planning board. Or Jesse. Okay, so I had mentioned earlier where I had asked Sarah to take a look at this different calculation for getting us into safe harbor. And I'm gonna let her discuss this with you because she has spoken with other towns and different people and has more information than me. So Sarah, why don't you take over that part of the discussion if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, yeah. So there is another way to calculate safe harbor status, and it's called the Glam calculation. So it's general land area minimum. And so it's a very lengthy and in-depth process. The town of Medford thought that they had achieved the proper calculation to get their safe harbor status. So it is, sort of at a high level, you're calculating whether the SHI eligible units comprise more than 1.5% of the total land area zoned for residential, commercial, or industrial use. So you have to take a look at it at a very granular level though, right? So there are a lot of things that are included and very few things that are excluded. So for example, we could exclude bodies of water. However, we would have to include swamps, marshes, and other wetlands into our calculation. So what it really gets into is a very deep dive into GIS, model building and mapping, looking at those layers, subtracting them, adding them to one another. I personally don't have the level of acumen with GIS that it would take to create these calculations. So that would either have to be Jay or someone on his team in-house, or perhaps we would have to outsource that if that was the direction that we wanted to go. Medford was able to do their calculation in-house. However, the proponent who had their proposal in front of the planning board at the time hired an attorney, obviously, to counter what the calculations were that the town came up with. And their calculations were ultimately proven to be in error due to how the SHI units were categorized at the at the level of the assessor's information within the community's records. So when I spoke with Dennis over in Medford, he said that it's not a complete fool's errand, but that it is a very lengthy and very arduous undertaking, and that really it did not result in significant gain for them, except to use it as a leveraging tool to get a more palatable proposal from the proponent. So because, it all sort of got dragged into litigation and nobody likes that, the proponent was able to sort of kind of bring down their ask a little, and the town was able to sort of give a little and get to a better resolution for them. But, he did not feel as though it was a calculation that was easily obtained, if at all. And he, he is not aware of any other communities that have been successful in calculating GLAM. So it's one of those things that is out there under the general law in theory, but it's never been proven. I will continue to research this if this group thinks that it may be a worthwhile avenue. My sense is that unless we, like Medford, would be using it to try to stop something that's potentially on the horizon, I don't know that it's the best use of resources at this point. But there is a PDF, that is issued by, the state that, kind of talks a little bit about it, introductions, regulations. I can send that around so everybody can take a look, and then maybe we can talk about it further. This was a question that was posed, by a couple of planning board members. It was mentioned in a previous HPP, in the 2015 HPP, as hey, there is this tool that you could potentially use in Massachusetts. But, however, it does seem like it's quite an undertaking.
It's not a realistic thing to attain. I mean, it sounds like.
And so I guess my question,
you can't really do it, but hey, if you want to try, there's this.
I guess my question would be, why would we as Shopc want to be a proponent of that? Because we're trying to facilitate the creation of affordable housing, and 40B is one mechanism, probably the best mechanism in town we have for the creation of multifamily housing, including affordable housing. So I guess in my mind, I don't see why we're not looking forward to the safe harbor that would prevent developers from doing 40B projects, because they can't do multifamily housing in Southborough without a 40B, let alone being required to establish affordable housing here. So I don't see why we'd expend resources to try to find an end around to stop 40B projects from happening before they're actually 10% of our housing stock is affordable. That seems antithetical to what Shopc is supposed to be doing.
I would agree. It's just, there was something that was proposed and thrown out just to take a look at. We took a look at it, a preliminary look at it, because we were kind of asked to, and I don't think it's feasible, and we're not going to waste any more resources on that. So we're not going to I don't think there's anything we can do. Again, it's not within our purview as a committee to be doing that, to take that under our wing. So we did the initial research. We'll get that information over to planning board. But other than that, I don't think that we should be involved in it. I would agree with Tom, because we're cutting our nose off to spite our face, and that's not what we're supposed to be doing. So does anybody have any other comments on that, or? No. Okay. Well, Sarah, thank you for doing all that
Thanks, Sarah.
research for us, and let's work to get that information over to planning board.
Yeah, I can send a summary over along with the guidelines that the
I would
state
send that
issues.
over to Mimi.
Okay.
And
Sounds
then
good.
she can distribute it to her group.
Okay,
Send it to
sounds good.
Mimi and Karina. And
Okay.
then they can distribute that as they see fit to their committee. Okay. So we have a request. And the way I would like to handle this from our board is John Wood has taken a new position, and because of his new job, he really needs to be designated as a special town employee by the town, for the town with his new position. And in order to do that, Shopc would need to request the Board of Selectmen to designate him in that role. And
Designate this whole committee. It's not
Yes,
just me. It would be the
yes.
whole committee.
Oh, the
Yeah.
whole committee. I thought it was you as an
No,
individual.
no, no. What happens is, so this is the only
My
committee I'm on
misunderstanding.
right now. So
Okay.
let me just recap this real quick.
Yep.
So I took a job. I'm in state and local government for my company. I'm in the SLED team, which means that Northborough, Southborough are in my sales district, and I may or may not be required to work with them with state contracts and things like that. It's not a conflict of interest. I reached out to the ethics board, and they found it. So EDC, Dave McKay had them, the Economic Development Community, deemed as special municipal employees. There was a fuss after he did that because it didn't go to vote through the EDC to make us SMEs, special municipal employees. So I told Dorian that I had to get off this committee, or the committee would need to be designated as special municipal employees. All that takes is it to go before the selectmen to be voted on. And we really don't need to take a vote on it as a committee, from what the ethics board told me, but I would rather it go by vote to the committee, because if anybody doesn't want to be designated special municipal employees, that's fine. I would need to resign just because my job, there will be conflicts of interest if I'm not. Or not an actual conflict of interest, it would be a perceived conflict of interest, which I'd rather not have.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John, I misunderstood you. I thought you had to be not
No,
off.
the committee itself would have to be.
Okay.
That's why I said to you, I'd either need to get off or the committee would need to. So that's
Okay.
why I wanted to be discussed and brought to a vote.
Does anyone know what the
I would
distinction
like
is?
to vote.
What are the implications of being a special municipal employees?
Really don't know.
I think it has to do with, because every time this come up, it's hard for me to remember exactly, but I think the key difference is about where has to do with where you have partners, people in your business who might be doing business
Exactly.
for the municipality that you work for, that is unrelated to the work that you're doing in your capacity.
For the town.
Exactly.
So I
So,
work
and
for.
you might not even, and the concern is for some people that are in very big businesses, they might not even know that there's some type of a business relationship between the company they work for and the town. So
Yeah, I don't think that I could be a party to this because I work for a large national bank. And I just couldn't risk that the bank isn't connected to the
Well,
government.
what
No,
this
no.
is,
That protects you from that, Jesse. That's my company's an international company with 42,000 employees. That's the problem. Some of my sales force will be dealing without this way.
What are we now? We're not special? We're unspecial municipal
the
employees?
default is you're a municipal employee. There's only, the current, okay, I'm looking at a list from January 2020. The list of special municipal employees is Advisory Committee, Board of Assessors, Council on Aging, Economic Development Committee, election poll workers, Special Counsel to the Conservation Commission for the Park Central Project, and Tree Warden.
Right.
As to why that's the list, I couldn't tell you.
Just
There's
to clarify,
Alex,
simple point. Am I right in understanding that if we're talking about, we're all technically being classified this way as, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we possibly kick this over to the next meeting just so we can just get a great
I'm fine with that.
understanding? Because John, I definitely want to keep you on the thing. So if it's immaterial, I'm totally in favor, but I just want to understand, it's the first time I'm just thinking about it. I just want to understand the designation a little bit better.
Maybe we could ask the town clerk to come to the next meeting and explain it, Dorian.
either that or I can check in with Jay Tallerman too.
I
either
know
way.
it's in that
way-
booklet, that conflict of interest booklet they gave you, but who registers
Yeah,
every detail of
I
that?
prefer to check in with Jay Tallerman and get the legal end of it and see what the ramifications.
Absolutely fine with me. I just want to make sure I do the right thing with the right channel, so there's no.
Yeah, we definitely
questions,
want to
no
keep you on
problems.
this committee, John, for sure. So.
Does it affect the enormous salaries we get being on this commission?
Yeah, we get double.
Yeah. You can have mine now, Alex.
Okay, so we'll bring that back, that discussion back over. John, is that gonna be an issue for you?
No, it shouldn't be. I've just stayed out of this district for now, so.
Okay. All right, we'll just bring that over to the next meeting. Speaking of which, we need to set a date for. Everybody can pull your calendars up. So today's 1, 2, 3, 4. How does, okay, so does a Thursday night work for everyone?
Sure.
Yes.
Does for me.
Okay,
Yes.
so how about October 27th?
Yes.
I
That
can
work?
do.
Looks good right now.
Okay,
Alright.
You know what? I don't know what time I fly out. I'm going to Nashville that day.
Bring your guitar.
Haha, absolutely. You know, my only, I mean, worst case scenarios, I'm on a plane at that time. I just gotta find out what time my flight is, but that should work.
okay, and do you prefer Zoom, guys?
Yes.
That would be helpful to me just in case I'm either in Nashville or in an airport.
Okay,
Right.
so I will, like I did last time, I will set up a Zoom meeting. And I will ask for it to be put on the calendar immediately with my request. I will do that tomorrow. And then I think we'll get the agenda out to everyone, the minutes. I think that's good for the night. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Actually, you got other business probably brought before the committee,
Did I?
still on this. So I just
Other
want to bring
business
this up.
brought
So,
before the committee.
yes. So I've been asked by a couple people about the Habitat for Humanity. I know you've been asked as well, Dorian, so I just thought I'd bring it up for discussion. I remember there was a reason that it wasn't, I remember there was a reason that we didn't think that the Habitat Humanity was a great idea, but I do not remember what the reasons were. I thought it was more costly than we thought it would be, and we didn't have control. But I know that that someone wants to discuss it with us, the Board of Selectmen, and if they do, I think we should have a joint meeting with them because it would be good for Doug, the new member, as well as us. Because I don't remember why it wasn't a good idea, but I remember I didn't think it was a good idea. And that
Yeah, it has nothing to do whether it's a good idea or not. We
it
had
was
them come
financially
in.
feasible.
They came in and did a presentation, a 2.5-hour presentation. It was an
Yep.
information fact-finding thing. We don't have any projects, we don't have any land, and the person you are talking to has reached out to me
Well,
3 times.
No,
I
this, I'm not talking
responded,
about,
no,
I haven't
no,
even
no.
spoken with it. I haven't spoken with him. I spoke to somebody who else that said the town may donate land. So we may have land. So I think it's just not a bad idea to, if we get land donated, to at least consider it and go to a joint meeting. And here, the most we lose is time.
Okay, well, I've already spoken to this person on 3 separate occasions. I've given the same answer. Then one of the selectmen approached me about the same thing. I gave them the same answer. The answer is the same. We don't have a project. We don't have land. We don't have anything. And there are other groups out there that we are also going to speak to. We are not just going to stick with the Habitat group. We're going to look at all our options and we're going to make an educated decision who we would use, when we're going to use them. But right now, to bring Habitat in is a complete waste of time. There's no reason to bring them in right now.
So let me
Nor
ask you this.
for the other 2 groups.
So what if the select board says, hey, we have a plot of land that we can donate to Habitat, and they have Habitat come out on their own for a meeting? I'd go join that meeting just to learn about it myself, whether they do it or not. I'm just asking if we remember what, I remember there was a reason. I just don't remember what
There's
that
no reason, John.
was.
There's no projects. We know what the price is. We know what their process is. We know all of that. We
I
have all
don't,
that
that's what I'm
information.
asking. I don't remember that.
There
Can you
isn't.
tell me that then?
Well, yeah, we'll have to go back and revisit the minutes. I don't know.
I
all
can
the
do that. No, I was
details,
just
but-
curious if you remembered the process.
No. It was, we have a process. We would have to give them the land.
Thank you. That's
They
what
would
I'm
have
trying to remember.
someone come in and build something. My understanding is the DHCD, in order to get it on the list, would have to choose the party. They would have to
Okay.
participate in building, the house, the whatever. And then we would get the credit for that building, for that house, for the bedrooms, whatever.
And
we
if
get
it's
credit for it.
sold, And if it's sold, we don't get that money back. That goes to Habitat. Was that something that was correct? too?
So-
I kind of remember that we lost control of the property.
It's a little bit
And it wasn't even in
complicated.
perpetuity that it would be.
No, the habitat process is again like a little more complicated. It has to do with the family who's
Sarah.
going to be
Thank you, Doreen.
purchasing, donating, sweat equity hours. And so that, does not necessarily translate into a perpetuity affordability situation. It can, I think, but really the relationship is between Habitat and the purchasing like homeowners, right? And then the town like supports that relationship and supports the construction of the home, but it really has to do with again, the purchasing party putting in sweat equity, getting really involved in the process. So there is a removal of responsibility on the part of the town in some way, and a removal of control, on part of the town once that
That's what I thought. I knew there
house
was
is
something
completely constructed. But I can look back through and try to find where we had that presentation, and just try
I
to
can do the same. I was just curious. I was just saying it was brought up to me and I was asking, I wasn't saying that we should have him come in for a meeting. I was asking why. I remember there was a reason, but I couldn't remember the reasons of what they were, why it wasn't it
Yeah,
didn't seem
we-
like a fit at the time.
Yeah,
We would
right.
have to give the land up basically to them. They would find the house, the party. And I'm not sure if the DHCD does the lottery on that property like they would do with regular property. But there are also 2 or 3 other groups that do something very similar. And our thought process was we were going to listen to everyone. And then
And it
when,
was a lot more expensive than we thought it was too, as
Yes,
well.
it's
'Cause there was
very,
a much
very
higher cost that
expensive.
went with it than I expected.
It
if
Yeah.
I
was
remember
very
correctly.
expensive.
right.
And
But there are other groups that do it out there, John, that are less expensive and may work better for the town. So we have to, when we're ready, when something becomes available, we have that opportunity. We will bring Habitat back, but we will also talk to other groups. And this committee will make an educated decision as to what group works best for the town and gives us the most bang for our buck, so to speak. But there's no reason to be bringing them back in. We have already
Okay.
spoken to them. It's a waste of our time
I
and their
just
time.
want-
because
I
we don't
was
have
just-
anything.
I was just asking.
Yeah, no, because we don't have anything, but I've had the individual reach out to me 3 times now. I just give the same answer. It's not like I'm trying to not work with them, but we don't have anything. We have no land, we have no property, we have nothing. So we've already brought them in once and had a 2-hour, 2.5-hour meeting. To me, it's extremely inconsiderate to bring them in again when we have no intention of doing anything with them right now.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but
No. That's, I know that the select board was thinking about it and I was just asking if we thought we should, if they do, should we attend? And I was also just asking, I remembered there was reasons that it wasn't feasible or didn't seem feasible at the time, but I just couldn't remember what they were. So I
well, the
just
Board of
wanted to clarify.
Selectmen really, in my opinion, shouldn't be bringing Habitat in because that's not their job, that's our job. And that would be kind of circumventing us and that wouldn't be an appropriate step to take. So
Okay,
that's up to them. They can do whatever they want. but
okay.
that
I
would not
just
be the
wanted to have a
appropriate
discussion
step.
with our committee on it.
Yep, that just wouldn't be the appropriate step, but that's their call to make. It's not mine. You hear me, Andrew?
2 quick things. One, do I have this right? The 18th of next month?
Yes, no,
Okay.
No, no.
27th.
27.
And by
Okay.
the way, the special town meeting is on October 13th.
October 13th?
Yep,
Hang on.
Thursday,
Yep,
October 13th.
PM. And where are we having that, Andrew? Do we know yet?
The usual place.
It's right here.
And then one other thing, which may not be at all relevant for this commission, but I just wanted to put it out there. The Housing Authority is actively doing a search for a new director. And I don't know if there's any interest in anyone, if we, probably not, but I just thought I should throw it out there so everyone's aware of it.
I'll keep an eye out.
That's helpful. but in, just to close the loop in terms of other organizations that do offer that sort of one home creation support. There's another organization called Homes for Our Troops that specifically deals with creating veterans housing and a one-off basis, kind of like Habitat for Humanity does with families. And so I would like to reach out to them and have them present to this group so that we can, like Dorian said, sort of just weigh our options in terms of next steps.
I think that's a great
Sounds
idea.
good
I
to me.
think the more groups we talk to and get as much information and educate ourselves as much as possible, that will help us make the best decision for the town. So.
Especially if we can get if the Board of Selectmen are even thinking about donating any town property for housing, I don't care who built it as long as we get affordable housing.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Me too,
That's
yeah.
right. Agreed.
I'm game. So, okay, does anybody have anything else to add?
Not me anymore.
Okay. All right, so we have our next meeting. We've done other business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, do we have-
Second,
okay, and this is a roll call vote. Tom,
Aye.
John, Andrew?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, John, I cut you off because it was too quick. Jesse,
aye.
Doug,
I,
Alex?
Aye.
And Dorian is aye. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and I appreciate your time. This meeting went a little longer than normal, but I thought it was a good one, so thank
Well,
you.
Welcome,
well,
Doug.
thank
You guys all
And
went
Doug,
awesome.
welcome to the
Thank you.
committee. You're
And
Yeah,
Doug,
yeah.
welcome
Doug
aboard.
and Amber, have we scared you away yet?
thank you.